But the first thing I want to do is ask you all, why do research? So for you three students, and for Andrea and Edgar, you guys can think back to your transition, your undergraduate years, right? What motivates you to do research? So think about that for 30 seconds to a minute, and then you can either unmute yourself for a small enough group, or you can type your answer into the chat. So let's hear from one of the students first, and then I'm going to ask Edgar and Andrea to tell a little bit of their story on their research paths. So what do you guys, what would motivate you to do research?
So there's a few things that would motivate me to do these. One would be, it looks really good on scholarships and resumes.
Yep.
There's a lot of valuable skills that can be learned from it. And there's a third one, but I'm forgetting somehow. Oh, you can learn about something you're interested in pretty deeply.
Yeah. Yep. Jaren or Jade?
That was pretty much what I had to, like just, I don't know, finding new skills and I don't know, figure things out for yourself instead of hearing someone else tell you. You get the experience of oh, I figured this out by myself, and you can use that in the future and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just an eagerness to learn more about a subject.
Mm-hmm. So you get a sense that you've got a little bit more freedom to ask questions. You can kind of focus your research a little bit more on what you're interested in. That's great. It does look nice. You get to network a little bit more too. Usually you get to meet people and they can be valuable to you in writing letters of recommendation in your future. So that was something that was, when I share my story, that was something that happened to me that was unanticipated when I started doing it. Andrea and Edgar, what was your stories? What was your first research project?
So my first research project as an undergraduate was with the person who was also my academic advisor, funnily enough. And I did a summer research project through a REU research experience through NSF. Mm-hmm. And the reason I chose to work with him was because he was working on solar materials, which I thought was a really important problem. And honestly, the equipment also kind of drew me in, and I just wanted to play with all the fun toys.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that when, the people that I met through that, and especially going to group meetings and then seeing how the graduate students interfaced with people from the National Renewable Energy Lab, which was right next door, and then with other students in the group and the professors, that was really interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, the lab meetings are fascinating, even as an undergraduate. They're scary and intimidating at times, but if you start doing research and you start getting incorporated into a lab and they start bringing you into lab meetings, it is great experience on watching a group of people think and watching people talk about problems and solve problems and things like that. I really, really enjoyed getting into my first lab meetings. Edgar, what about you?
I think like kind of the same than Andrea about discovering something. I guess when I was in college, I always knew that I was interested on algae.
Okay.
So I feel like I am a dreamer. So basically, I just wanted to know everything about algae. And I didn't realize that that was a thesis. So basically, when they say, you need to do your undergraduate research project and work with that, I said algae. And then the next step was my master's degree, my PhD.
Yeah.
And basically, I feel like I am like I love learning about something new and fulfilling my curiosity.
Yeah.
So, and also I agree that during this science journey, you can learn, you can network with people. I was able even to visit different countries because I had a scholarship. So I was in Europe, Asia, other countries in America. So yeah, it's like a great way to increase your knowledge and also for networking.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, that reflects a lot. You guys are all saying things that were part of my story too. I call myself a first generation grad student because my father had a 4-year degree, but I had no idea what graduate school was. I had no idea that you could go on and be an academic and ask questions and do research. So I got exposed to that as an undergraduate, and then I got asked to assist a graduate student who was my lab teaching assistant. She asked me, you want to start helping me do my research out on the coast? Because it was a marine biology class I was taking. And so I started with her, but her spouse was a professor at the University of Oregon. And so that he's my advisor for my master's degree. So I would never have gone to grad school without having gone out as an undergraduate and started helping do research. And they were, as a couple, they were pretty good advisors because they got you out and helping her do her data collection, but they encouraged people that were helping to also come up with their own questions and ask those. And I even applied for a little bit of money that was available to pay for my gas to drive out to the coast and things like that. But what hooked me was that curiosity thing, right? Where you're out there and you start asking these advisors, these people you're out there with, these questions, and they look at you and they say, we don't know. You should go out and do something with that, right? So that's sort of the fun thing is finally feeling like you're in an area where we don't know. You are in charge, you're collecting the data, you're telling the world about this new stuff. So
maybe can I interrupt a little bit, Stacey? Yeah. Maybe also like the fun part, but what about the frustration part?
Oh yeah.
So that's like the other side, right?
Right. When nothing works. If you're doing it right, you should fail several times before you feel like you got some good data.
The way to learn.
Yeah. Right. So for the last 8-10 years or so, there's been a big push to try to get undergraduate research experiences into community colleges. So for a long time, people said, oh, we can't do it at community colleges. We're too, our budgets are too low. We only have students for 2 years, blah, 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 blah. I'm waving my hands and saying blah, 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 because now we're doing it. One of the arguments is this article I have down here is that if we do it in courses, we expose a lot more people to research experiences. And like you guys were saying, there's important skills in when you do a research project. And that's one of the things I want all my students to have, even if they're going to go on and become a physical therapist and never do research again. I want them to know where that data comes from, where the research articles come from, have a little bit of experience with that. So community colleges and course-based undergraduate research experiences, these cures really expose a lot of people to that. And then here's a highlight from recent news, January 7th, that came out in the LA news cycle that this is a former student of mine, Emily Hamblin, who is a conservation biologist down in the Catalina Island areas. And they thought this shrew was extinct. And they deployed game cameras across the island. And it took them, you were talking about failure, Edgar, it took them a while, but they finally got this shrew that they thought was extinct back on camera. And she is one of the inspirations for me to start doing research with my students, because I had her about 12 years ago and she was encouraging me to do more research with students in classes and labs, and we've just expanded it since then. And she's gone on to get her PhD in wildlife biology, and I keep in touch with her, and she's done stuff like monitoring the grizzly bears in the Yukon Territory one summer. She did game camera stuff, and she did tracking the fishers, the small weasel family mammal in the Sierra Nevadas. So she's done some really cool stuff, but she always inspires me to do stuff with students. So what opportunities do we have at Lane? We've, for several years now, we've been having the Science Undergraduate Research Day, or Sugar Days. We have 2 days now, usually in the spring. This year it will, we're talking about a week, and it will be the 9th week of spring quarter, so May 24th through the 28th. And if you've been around Lane a little while, you might have seen this iceberg icon. This is the idea of research is just the tip of it. There's all this work and things underneath that iceberg that supports all of the research. So we have the Sugar Day specifically for science, research projects, but there's other things that happen on campus. There's an e-portfolio showcase. So if you've been in any of the writing classes, you might have put together or started to put together an e-portfolio. And so we have those are ways of people to collect their research in the various classes they've taken at Lane. And then we've also had a Lane alumni panel. So I gotta admit, it's heavily science majors, students who come back because that's who I am in contact with. These two people here, Gina Knox and David Lee, were our alumni that I interviewed and recorded last year because we were remote. They were both working with the virus. So they had been in the spring already tasked to do things with coronavirus testing. Gina Knox is standing next to a machine there in one of the hospital laboratories up in the Portland area. And they were just going online with their big testing machine. And so she was part of the group that worked out all the problems with that. And then David Lee is a graduate student. He's in his second or third year, maybe, down at USC in the School of Medicine. He is a graduate student there. And he was working on ways to detect the virus in their bodily fluids, so saliva tests and things like that. So it was really great to have former students who are out there doing really, I mean, you want to talk cutting edge research, right? This genome, we've now known this virus was around for a little over 12 months, and we've had the genome now for about 12 months. And the explosion of research around that has been huge. So how can you get involved if you're interested in doing research at Lane? That course-based undergraduate research is my first go-to for my students that are in biology. But if you're taking organic chemistry, they will work you into some research projects by the end of spring quarter. Environmental science has some course-based undergraduate research projects. Those are the ones I know about in the sciences. There is Lane's honors program. So these, like I said, are hyperlinked. So you can go to these and see more information about these. The honors program has some criteria for you to earn an honors degree on your transcript. And one of those components can be doing some research. So the instructors that teach the honors classes are more oriented to student research. So if you are interested in doing honors level work, you can probably talk to instructors in your honors classes about doing a research project. There's a Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, and I've linked to their Facebook group for this. They list on here, this is an open public group, so if you're interested in just keeping an eye on it, you can join the group. C. Rosenau is the faculty advisor for both Phi Theta Kappa and the honors program. So she is one of my partners in crime at Lane for introducing students to research and helping get you to the universities and into a research experience there as well. And then finally, there's this independent study option. And this is probably the most boring link to go to because this is just in our college online policy and procedure system, which puts all of us to sleep too. But it's got a basic background for what you would need to do an independent study. So I occasionally do independent studies with students. These are usually 1 to 2 students and me, and we're doing some sort of project that the student has come up with. I don't often have projects that I give to students. This is something you would come up with on your own. It's best to propose this to an instructor that you've already had and you'd like to work with as an advisor. And then the last thing to think about, just to let you guys know, these are all extra for faculty to do. We don't get any extra pay. We don't get any class release time. These are just purely on top of our regular teaching load. So it's not always available. Your instructors may not always be available to do an independent study. But if you've done some research in their class and you're really excited by that, talk to them about maybe possibly stretching that out to some other continuation of that. So those are the main things right now that Lane has for getting you all some research exposure while you're here.
I
But
have a question
go ahead.
about the independent study. Do instructors need to get permission from somebody else to accept the study or the?
Yeah, so there is a final step to the instructor and the student filling out the form to outline what's the product that will be graded, all that kind of thing. What's the how much work will be done, and then the dean has to sign off on that project. I've never had the dean say no to me, but I don't know, things are changing. Right now, we're all sort of dancing around the whole, how do we do research safely? I am starting a research project with a former student who's at U of O right now, and she has experience with the game cameras. So we met out on campus about a week and a half ago, and we're wearing masks and we're putting up the cameras and things like that with some safety protocol in place. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if you want to do some chemistry lab work. I don't know that we got the space to do that right now, but maybe Andrea, you've got some online astronomy kind of opportunities. Maybe, you know, there's some other ways that we can do research with students right now. And Edgar, you've been really concentrated in the wet lab, right? Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But yeah, I think like as you said, Stacey, also there are some ideas that you can develop through online databases. So yeah, so there's a lot of research even in biology that is online. So doing bioinformatic research where you're going out and grabbing data from databases and doing some comparisons. That's all research now in some areas of biology. And I realize I am 3 minutes over now, but I just wanted to quickly tell you about the University of Oregon's Undergraduate Research Day, which is Thursday, May 27th. They have partnered with LCC, and they're starting at Central Oregon Community College now, inviting students over to be a part of their Undergraduate Research Day. So you can present a digital poster, an oral presentation, a discussion panel, creative work presentation, or a data story. And all of these are described in more detail if you go to that hyperlink there. You all maybe, I would guess you'd be doing either a digital poster if you finish up a project to completion, or the data story. So the data story is more telling your story about how you're into research and where you are now, what steps have you taken, and what analysis have you done, and things like that. There is a link here for the U of O Undergraduate Student Research Group, ASSURE. So they have a lot of resources that you can look at about getting involved in research. They have tutorial resources and peer mentors that you can meet with, and you can contact them because they will help support you if you decide that you want to present at the Undergraduate Research Day. So I am encouraging students that I know that are doing research or completed research in fall quarter to put their posters in for this day. So registration is April 12th. This is the last day that you can put your name in. And then you're going to confirm about 12 days later on the 24th. And you need to have an abstract ready by then. So you can actually tentatively decide you want to do it, and then work with a mentor, your advisor, a peer tutor to get your abstract ready. And you might be doing abstracts as part of a research project in your classes. So many instructors I know are doing that. And then you're uploading your project and doing a short little video for that by May 18th. And then the actual day is on May 27th. So U of O did this all virtually last year. They put a bunch of stuff up on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. I should put that YouTube channel into this slideshow as well. But you can get there from the
I have a link to it in our agenda, luckily.
day. Good. Okay. So I'm stopping talking. You guys have questions for me? I'm sorry I ran over.
No, you're fine. We still have 10 minutes till our official meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what questions do y'all have?
I don't have any further questions.
I guess this might be a little personal, but like, what's your favorite like research thing you've done?
As a student or as an advisor?
I guess both. Or
Okay.
one or the other. I think it really matters.
So it's interesting to think about how I've done research in different ways, right? So I was actually in on the first 2 summers where we collected data on the northern spotted owl populations. First time ever anybody had attempted to collect data on how many pairs are out there. So I spent 2 summers out hooting in the woods and feeding live mice to owls, which A, paid good, and it paid my way through undergrad, and B, was just a really fun thing to do. And I knew it was relevant, right? Because yeah, it was sort of cause for the shutdown of some timber harvesting. And so I was living in the Roseburg area at the time. So when I ran into high school classmates, I was not telling them what I was doing because I'd probably get my butt kicked by some of them, you know? So that was while I was an undergraduate. In grad school, I worked over on the coast on an endangered butterfly species, and I really enjoyed that. And then I started doing biology education research. So I now ask questions about how do we teach best, and are students getting, are learning? Are they really picking up what we hope that they pick up? So that's really kind of a new way that I'm being a researcher, is looking at asking questions about teaching.
So I have okay, I do actually have a question.
Okay.
How do we find things or come up with things to actually do research on?
That's a great question, right? I see Andrea and I girl, like, yeah, we've been there, right? You've been there you've been spinning and trying to figure out things. Even with biology education research that I do now, it's reading the papers in an area that interests you. You guys can go out and if you hear something about something in a class, I encourage you to go out to Google Scholar and start looking up papers. Maybe it's about a certain person. So if you're going to go to the University of Oregon or Oregon State and you want to get involved in research, look at who the faculty members are in your department and go to their websites and read a few of their papers. That way, when you go up to them and ask them about possibly being a researcher with them, an undergraduate, you can say, I've read your paper on this or that or the other, and it's really interesting. It helps you figure out what you're interested in too, as you're doing some of this reading. And then it's a lot of, for me, external processing, talking with people. What's a good question? Are we asking the right question? Science is a process of, like people said earlier, failure and starts and stops. And I've got a set of data we're working on now for a paper on the impact of implementing a math prerequisite on the biology majors classes. And we have analyzed, we've had biostats people help us, and we've analyzed it 3 or 4 or 5 different ways so far.
So research, it isn't just struggling on a question, or like, for instance, I do computer programming, and often I get stuck for a long time on one thing. Mm-hmm. But that wouldn't be considered research. It's more just struggling.
Well, all of science is struggling, right? I am encouraging people to think differently about research. So computer science does research. It looks different than research does in biology. Research in the fine arts looks different than it does in computer science. So think about who's asking the questions and who's come up with those solutions. And that's part of that, probably part of that area of research for computer science. I don't know for sure, but I think there's a lot of, I've talked with computer science faculty from U of O who do research, and yeah, as deep as I can dip my toe into it, there's interesting stuff going on. I think they involved undergrads. I have friends who work in the interface between all this data that we're collecting in biology, all this protein and DNA sequence data, and the computer science, the database management, and the search features and the algorithms and things like that. So that's an area of really, it can kind of be thought of like problem solving, but you know, you're doing research at the same time. You're asking questions like, is this way or that way better to do this or solve this particular problem?
Yeah, Stacey, I like the kind of the framing you just put there of problem solving as kind of, it's maybe a subset of the bigger process of inquiry where you're asking a bigger question, and then that gets, you know, broken into these smaller questions, and then those are kind of the topic of problem solving sometimes.
Yeah.
But as long as it involves inquiry, asking an original question and following your curiosity and following the lead, I think that's what I think of when I think of research.
Yeah. And in industry, they've always got a research and development department, right? R&D departments are always, and I always love telling students who are saying, well, I really like math, but I don't know about it. I'm like, go into math, be a math major, because places like Target hire you and pay you really, really, really good money to solve problems for them that involve their huge databases about all of us. Every time we go to Target and buy something, right, we're going into a database. Anything else, Sharon?
No, that's it. Thanks for coming to the talk here.
Yeah. And feel free to send me an email if you have more questions about this. I actually forgot to put there's a generic LCC undergraduate research email, but you can just email me directly too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a nice night.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you, Stacey.
I'll stop sharing. Okay, I'm out of your way.
Bye.